Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So today morning is the second part of our discussion. So yesterday we discussed about how to see Krishna's hand in our life, especially in terms of, because what are three things we discussed? How does Krishna guided me? What did Krishna arrange for me? And what did Krishna permit? So we talked about that point of gap. Today morning, we'll discuss that when there are difficulties in our life, when we go through hard times, at that time, how do we see Krishna's hand? Now, this is probably one of the strongest arguments for atheism. That there are broadly the arguments for atheism that fall in logical, psychological, and moral, three categories. Logical is, for example, that why should we believe in something which is not visible? Psychological is that it's just we need some, we long for some protective figure. That's why we imagined up some God. But the moral argument is that if there were a good God, how could such a good God allow so much suffering in the world? And that is a complex question. Sometimes we present karma as if it's like, we just way off hand. It's all because of karma. See, I haven't seen in our scriptures anywhere karma being used to explain away an individual's suffering. Nowhere have I seen that when a person is suffering, somebody else tells him it's your own karma. Yes. When Draupadi is abducted, nobody tells her, you must have done something because of it you are dishonored like this. Or for the matter of Sita. When Pruthu has his citizens coming to him and saying that, we are starving, there's a famine. It doesn't say it's your own karma, live with it. No, so the point is, in the first canto, when Parikshit Maharaj is talking with the bull, he asks him, what is the cause of your suffering? And the bull says, Vakya Bheda Vimoha. That there are different philosophers who have different ideas about the cause of suffering. And it's very difficult to know what is the exact cause. Now, what do I mean by this? That yes, at a philosophical level, the principle of karma does make sense. So, the theme which I'm going to talk about today is that when we are suffering, we could be karma conscious or we could be Krishna conscious. And we could say karma conscious. And karma conscious is one thing, and Krishna conscious is another thing. Now, if being karma conscious helps us to be Krishna conscious, that is good. But sometimes, what do I mean by this? That Krishna consciousness is the bigger reality, and within that, karma is one factor that works under Krishna. If we can see it like this, that is favorable. That is more favorable. So, this will be anukul. This is favorable for our Krishna consciousness. But sometimes what happens for us is that karma consciousness becomes so big that Krishna becomes very small. We do not want to be so karma conscious that we are no longer Krishna conscious. Sweet. Tighten. Okay. So I'll explain what I mean by this also. Okay, I'll just move this side. Is this better now? That's okay. So as far as karma consciousness, Krishna consciousness, what I mean by that is that when somebody is going through difficult times, telling them it's your own karma, it's not really helpful in any way. Why is it not helpful? Because ultimately, if in the past karma I have done, I don't know what was the past karma. I don't know what I should be avoiding now. I don't know what I can do about it now. So it is it is not at all practically helpful. Now this is where now we could say, then is karma not a part of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness? Well, yes, it is a part of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, but it is only a part. It is not the whole. So what do I mean by that? That actually, with respect to the problem of evil, say yesterday I talked about, like, when we move from, say, where we are to success, there is basically, from our perspective, choice and chance. Now, I'm talking about it from, as I mentioned, a purely objective perspective, without a person having any philosophical presumptions to it. Choice means what is in my control, and chance, I mean, beyond my control. So, I was just in Dubai a couple of weeks ago, and they tell me that there are generally Indians who go to the West, they go primarily in software. Those who go in the Middle East, they go either as doctors, they go as in mining, the mineral engineering and chemical engineering and all that, or they go as labor. Of course, nowadays they're going more as finance also, because much of Dubai has become quite a international hub now. They provide a lot of tax relief and other things. But the point is, those who go in the mining industry, especially, it's one thing if you're an employee, but if you own a mine, then what happens? You may dig up and you may get oil, but the price of the oil and how much money you get out of it depends on factors completely beyond your control. Because that if more oil is generated from some other part of the world, then what happens? The price of oil drops. And then the same thing, which is super profitable, it's no longer profitable. That's what happened to Russia. In Soviet Russia, so now it's like you could say a geopolitical mystery how such a huge empire collapsed so quickly, Soviet Russia. I don't know how many of you were born in Soviet Russia, I was still there. 1989 it was, but when I was growing up, at that time, there's this Cold War, sometimes it would become hot. But when the war was going on, it was that basically what happened, Soviet Russia was producing oil and that was a major source of its exports. But then suddenly the American government worked with Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia has been keeping its oil production minimum or at a particular level. And Saudi suddenly increased oil production. It increased the oil production, by that the oil prices dropped, and Saudi Arabia just became completely bankrupt. And they came to a situation where they had huge fighter aircrafts, but they had no money to pay the pilots to run the aircrafts. So now what happens, what I'm talking about is that sometimes just things beyond our control, they just work in ways that cause great trouble to us. So often when we talk about karma, we think of it as to explain this. That chance is your own doing. And there is some truth to that. But from what I have observed in scripture, the philosophy of karma is more not to explain what seems to be chance for us, but to empower what is still a choice for us. Let me explain what this means. That ultimately there is suffering in the world, and we have to deal with it. And whichever philosophy you go to in the world, as far as the suffering is concerned, there are only three possible explanations for suffering. What are three possible explanations? Suffering is a fact. Everybody has suffering of some kind or the other. Even people who are very wealthy, they also have sufferings in their own way. The Bhagavatam defines suffering in a very simple way. It says, what is this? Yasmat priya priya viyoga sanyoga janma. That which is priya, that which is dear, we want yoga with it. And we want to get what is priya. That which is apriya, we want viyoga from it. See, we like someone, we want to spend time with that person. We dislike someone, we want to avoid that person. Suppose we go for a camp and we think, okay, I'll have a great time in the camp. And a person whom we dislike, that person and we happen to be in the same room. So, what is this? Actually, when there is viyoga from the priya, and there is yoga with the priya. So, this is the simple definition of distress. What we want, we don't get. And what we don't want, we get. Now, the way it may happen for different people will be different. For a person who is not famous, that person may feel, okay, nobody recognizes me. For a person who is famous, everybody recognizes me. And that's the problem. I want some private time, I just cannot have any private time. So, it's not easy. Now we may think that's a nice problem to have. But once you have that problem, it's not so nice. Because it's like, you're constantly, there's no privacy, no sense of peace, you're always surrounded by people, hounded by people. So every situation has its own problems. My point is, suffering is unavoidable. Suffering is just a fact of life in the world. Now, we could say suffering has three different causes. One is, it is just chance. The other, it is just God. What do I mean by this? That chance is the atheistic way of looking at things. And ultimately, life is just like a lottery. Some people win, some people lose. And if you lose, bad luck. That's all there is to it. Now, this is actually a very difficult way to live. Anything may happen anytime, and there is no rhyme and reason for it. And how do we live life like that? It's like somebody saying that, whether you study or don't study, what marks you get, it's by chance. What is the point of studying? What is the point of doing anything? Now, the other side, so this is the atheistic view. Now, atheism does offer an emotionally compelling argument against the existence of God. What kind of God would allow the kind of suffering that is present in the world? And the suffering present in the world can be enormous. It is. I won't go into the details of suffering. So, the atheism is not just a foolish argument. There are some arguments, some things which are foolish, but at an emotional level, somebody who has seen terrible suffering in life, so where is God? It's a reasonable question to ask. But then, atheism does not remove the suffering of life. It only removes the hope that the suffering may have some purpose. Isn't it? That suffering, atheists will also have that priya and apriya, that yoga viyoga, that is going to happen for atheists also. If say innocent children are being killed in war, whether you believe in God or not, those children are still being killed. So atheism, what it removes, it does not remove. What does it remove? It does not remove suffering. Suffering is still going to be there. What it removes is the hope that the suffering can have some purpose. That there is, this whole thing is going somewhere. There is some plan, there is some point to what we are doing. Now, if we go towards the Abrahamic religions is Judaism, Christianity, Islam. Now, they may not say exactly that God is the cause of suffering, but ultimately, what happens is God is the supreme controller. And say, if it is God who decides, let this child be born in a poor family, let this child be born blind, let this person be in a place where there is so much crime. So then what happens is that and some of the child is born in a place where there's a lot of peace, a lot of prosperity, a lot of power. So it makes God seem discriminatory. And not just discriminatory, arbitrary and discriminatory. So one of the problems with the Abrahamic religions is that, see, in terms of the love of God, there are practitioners in each of these, in any world religion, who have developed a very high level of love of God. There are saints in every tradition. At the same time, the understanding of the world that is offered, that may be less or more clear in the philosophies associated with particular traditions. So, because these religions do not accept reincarnation, so what they are left with is this life is the only life we have. And therefore, the suffering that people face is very, very difficult. So this leads to the idea that God himself, as I said, is discriminatory and arbitrary. And if we consider these are the only two options we have, either an arbitrary, discriminatory God or just blind, unthinking chance, it is quite easy to go towards atheism. Because if, say, we are working for a boss and that boss just fires us without any reason, no explanation, no reason, suddenly we are fired. I think just such a cruel person. Now, to work faithfully with a person who might fire us at any time is difficult. What to speak of love such a person? So, to devote ourselves to a God who is completely arbitrary is extremely difficult. It's like going back to the exam metaphor. That if you study, but there is, what marks you get is completely random. So, you study, you give your exams, but ultimately the mark sheet is generated by a random number generator. That is outrageous. But suppose we have the mark sheet is generated by an arbitrary examiner who doesn't even bother about what we have written. Whatever marks they want, they give it to us. What kind of system is that? See, both systems are messed up. Right? Now, the third system in between is the system of karma and multi-life progression. What does karma and multi-life progression mean? That what happens in our life, there is cause-effect principle which works over a longer duration than what we see. So, see, the problem with the chance idea or thought process is that there is a part of life which does not work like that. So, for example, normally, if somebody eats food regularly, eats food properly, they exercise, they take care of their health, the health improves. Normally, if somebody smokes, somebody drinks, they're more likely to get cancer and stuff like that. So there is a connection between our actions and the results we get. But at the same time, there are situations when that connection is not there. There are some people who may eat very healthy and live very modestly, frugally, and still austerely, disciplined way, and still they may get some cancer or something. And there's somebody who might smoke every day for 30, 40 years and never get lung cancer. Now these exceptions do exist, but still they are exceptions. So if we say everything is by chance, we don't function like that. Because to some extent we do see that actions produce results. And that's why by changing our actions, we seek better results. So chance doesn't work on one side. But if you consider God as the explanation, then as I said, then that makes God very unloving. So what karma says is that there is the principle that, let's put it this way, the principle that action leads to result. This is true. But quite often there is a backstory. There's a bigger picture. That when action leads to result, it is not just there could be A1 plus A2. That means there's some action in the past which is also contributing to the present result. And this is not difficult to understand. So here, what am I trying to do? We are trying to look at God's hand, but I'm trying to see how karma fits in. As well, we want to be karma conscious, but not at the cost of being Krishna conscious. So, when I was introduced to Srimati 30 years ago, so at that time I was very inspired, and I was traveling with a senior devotee. He was going with very specific programs, and he was very polite and very kind and would answer questions very patiently. I had gone to one place, and after a class over there, one person came to ask him a question, and he just completely neglected it. The person was coming to ask a question, I was looking at him as if he was not looking at him. And then he called me and said, "You had asked me that question earlier, and I think let's discuss the answer." So I found it very odd. Then I asked him, "Oh, can I ask?" That person was trying to ask a question, but he completely neglected it. So he said that I have been coming here for many years, and each time I come, he monopolizes all my time. And some people ask questions to gain knowledge. Some people ask questions to show knowledge. That means they'll ask a question that will go for 5-7 minutes. And then after that also what happens is, you give an answer, they just come up with some technicality and object to the answer and just go on and on. They said, I have given him a lot of time, but I feel it's unproductive. Because that maybe somebody else can persuade him, but I have found that I cannot really help him much. So if I start answering his question, then I won't have time for anyone else. So from an immediate perspective, somebody approaching you, you are not responding, that seems impolite. But if you look at the bigger picture, okay, it's not impolite. There's a reason for it. So the way people behave with us is not just based on our immediate behavior. It could also be based on a past behavior. So the idea that when a smaller frame of reference does not make sense, when things do not make sense within a smaller frame, we try to look for a bigger frame. And we try to figure out, okay, what is happening over here? So this is how we also logically function. If somebody is very cold with us, so, okay, why are you so cold with me? I have not done anything wrong. That may be true, but then maybe we belong to a particular community, we come from a particular religion or a particular region, and that person was maybe mistreated by somebody from that particular demographic before. And then that's why that person is taking it out on us. You see, there's a difference between fair and logical. They're not the same thing. So that, say, for example, there's this phenomenon called anti-Semitism, where Jews are often targeted by people. Now, or say a particular, as I said, if Indians go to America, Indians are among the wealthiest minority in America. And that's why Indians are being targeted a little bit by the current government. So what happens is, Indians, in the past, many Indians are welcome of people, hardworking, talented people who contribute to our economy. But now the fear is you come there, you take away all our jobs. So if Indian goes to America, and Indian is treated cold by some Americans, Indian is treated coldly by them. It may not be because of what that particular Indian has done. So you getting angry with me because somebody else took away your job. Now it's not fair, but it's logical. See, fair is in a moral sense. Logical is in an intellectually understandable sense. It's intellectually comprehensive, isn't it? Okay. So, for example, somebody had a long, hard day. Maybe we try to talk with someone and that person just snaps at us. And we said, why are you talking? Why are you acting like this? And then they explain that they got some bad news from home. Maybe their child is sick. And they're disturbed. Okay. It's not fair that you hit me because you are harsh with me because your child is sick. But it's logical. I understand where you're coming from. So what happens is, with respect to karma, the karma philosophy is logical, but it does not seem fair. There is a sense to it, but emotionally it does not seem fair to us. Although intellectually we can make sense of it. So what happens, this bigger picture, now in this bigger picture, that the results that we get are a result of are due to past and present actions both. That helps us to make sense of life. That everything is not just by chance. There is some ordering principle, there is some God. At the same time, there is also there is something bigger going on. It's like, take the example of bank account. No, I put some money in the bank. Say I put $1,000 in my bank account. My bank balance should increase by $1,000. If I invest $1,000 in my bank, I put my $1,000 in my bank, and earlier the bank balance was zero, and it stays zero. Hey, what's this? I put money over there. Where did the money go? Now you could say that how much money you put in and what the bank balance will show. That's just by random. That's by chance. Who would want to put money in the bank like that? Or you say that, now, no matter how much money you put in, the bank manager or the cashier will decide how much your account will show. And that's also not fair. How does that make sense? But suppose, say, I had taken a debt worth $1,000. And now I put in $1,000. That $1,000 is not lost. That $1,000 is used to make up for my debt. The loan which I have taken, that is removed. So I have put in 1,000, what I see is still zero. But that does not mean that it is all vain. So what we are trying to do is here, let's go back over here. Say, karma, it can be used to explain that which is beyond our control. It's your own karma. And that is fair enough. But the philosophy of karma is much more to empower our choice. Okay, if you are earning money, if you are saving, and you are putting it in your bank, the saving habit is not fruitless. Now, our actions matter even if they don't seem to matter. I am saving money, but it is not reflecting in my bank account. It matters. It matters even if it doesn't seem to matter. So that choice which we have, if you see in the Mahabharata or in the Ramayana, if we see, or for that matter even with Parikshit Maharaj in the Bhagavatam, the bad things happen to every character. Whether Lord Ram is exiled or the Pandavas are exiled or Parikshit was given a death sentence. Bad things happen to everyone. And the focus is not so much on karma. That, okay, what was the karma that they did? Now we can say, of course, these are divine characters and whatever, and go in that direction. But overall, the focus is not so much on the karma. The focus is on their choice. Isn't it? The focus is on what Parikshit Maharaj chooses to do. The focus is Krishna is there with Arjuna right next to him. And Arjuna has to face a situation that is like nightmarish. See, when we say bad things can happen, there are many degrees of bad things. So, that, for example, I think I may have discussed in the previous class, there is adversity and there is atrocity. Aho kashtam aho yadyuyam dharmanandana. What is the difference between adversity and atrocity?
Atrocity is like force, proper measures.
And what?
Adversity is like cups.
Okay.
Atrocities are the ones like you can see the cause, like this person is interested in atrocity. And adversity in any unfavorable situation, at least once. You are not able to say how this has come in my life.
Yes. So adversity, like see, it's like if it's cold weather, you have to take a bath, and the power goes off, and you take cold water bath. That's adversity. But if you came to know somebody turned off our geyser, that is atrocity. So adversity is more, you could say, it is coming from nature. It is a part of life. But atrocity, there is some human cause for it. Now, among these two, which is more difficult to bear? Atrocity. How could somebody do this? Now, actually, for a responsible person, what is even more difficult to bear is agony. Agony is where a good person is left with no good choice. Like a bad thing happens to me, a bad thing is done to me, and a bad thing has to be done by me. So Arjuna, when he has to fight a war at Kurukshetra, he has to fight against Bhishma and Drona. And these are the elders, they're not just any other random elders, they're the elders from whom he learned archery. These are the elders for whose pleasure he learned archery. And these are the same elders that he has to now kill with that same archery. So, what did I do that I have to be put in such a situation where I have to act in this way? So now Krishna is with him and Krishna says, I know past, present and future. And yet Krishna does not give Arjuna a flashback. Where he says, you did this in that life and you did this in that life and that's why you are here now. So in general, when we say that if karma is a system of justice, then why don't we know why we, what did we do in the past because of which we are dealing with, because we are good suffering. Now we could go into various reasons for that, but the fact is we don't. And we can say we are finite. But even when the infinite, Krishna is with Arjuna. So Krishna does not focus on giving Arjuna any reason. In fact, Krishna does say, we have both gone through many lifetimes and you don't remember, I remember. Bahuni me vetitani janmani tabcha Arjuna tanyaham veda sarvani natvam vetta parantami. So now if Krishna does not reveal something, what does it mean? That is not so important. The point is, Arjuna, now this is the situation you are in. You have to make the best of the situation you are in. That means, now why hard times come in our life, that is quite difficult to figure out. To whatever extent we can, we should figure it out, and I'll explain that shortly. But my point is, karma should not just become a random waving of the like a waving of the arms or a waving of magic wand. Oh, it's all because of karma. That's, as I said, even if it's logical, it doesn't feel fair for us. It's not particularly helpful either emotionally or practically. What do I do right now? So with this understanding, when distress comes in our life, what do we do? There are broadly three things. I talk about this. Yesterday I talked about the acronym. Yesterday was about GAP. So today we talk about ACE. So what do I mean by ACE? That when bad things happen, look for the good around the bad. So when something bad comes in our life, how do we face the bad? How do we see the hand of God in the bad? In that particular situation, look for the good around the bad. Second is, look for the good to counter the bad. And third is, look for the good that will emerge from the bad. So, let's try to look at these. Look for the good around the bad. What does it mean? Say, if I am sick and I am in pain, I act as a spiritual consultant in the Bhaktivedanta hospital. So they have a spiritual care department there, which is quite active and quite moving at one level. But still, when some patients come, that they are completely frustrated, that nobody likes to go to the hospital, especially when they get admitted there. Unless, of course, somebody is a hypochondriac. Yeah. No hypochondriac? What it is? Oh. I appreciate how ignorant you are. No, it's not be sarcastic. This, like hypochondria is actually a very widespread phenomena in the West. It's called a first world problem. You have heard this term, first world problem? The first world problem means that life is so comfortable that people create some problems for themselves. Not that simple, but idea is that people feel so lonely, people feel so neglected, that they pretend they are sick so that they will get some attention and some affection. So that is called hypochondria. So what happens is that many people go to therapists. So in the West, many of the countries in the West are welfare states, or they have some welfare schemes. What does it mean? That your basic needs the government should provide for it. So if you don't have a job, then for your sustenance the government will give some loan. Government will give some support for you. In America they call it food stamps. The government will give you some house to stay in. So they try to avoid problem of homelessness. So in some countries they also provided health care. That if you are sick and you don't have money, the government will provide health care. But then now there is physical health and there is mental health. Now how much mental health can the government provide? Like some people go to a therapist just because they have no one to talk with. And if they go to a therapist and just take the time of therapist, how much time will the therapist give? Isn't it? So it becomes a big problem over there. So it's like, so the point is hypochondria is when people pretend to be sick just to get some attention and affection. Now most people are not like that. So, but when they are sick, when they come to a hospital, at that time, it may often happen that they are constantly not often, sometimes it happens that they're complaining, they're irritated, they are just this is wrong, that is wrong, they're just irritated. So one nurse was telling me over there that some patients are sick and they make us sick of us. They make us sick of them. So it's now that, okay, you are sick, that's a problem. But you are being treated. You are being cared for. You have medicine. Look for the good around the bad. The bad is there, we don't deny it. So how can we be Krishna conscious when something bad happens? I did so much. I practiced so much bhakti, I did so much puja, I did this, and still this bad thing happened to me. So the way we do it is, look for the good around the bad. To try to make sense, to try to see good, to try to see God in the bad itself is extremely difficult. And we look at how to see the bad. But in general, shift the vision, look for the good around the bad. So, when we go through life, there are times when bad things do happen to us. If we consider our life, the situation that comes upon us, we could say that there is something good about it and something bad about it. Now, it's not that simple. We could say sometimes it could be also that there is 90% bad and 10% good. That is also possible. But still, the fact is that in whatever situation we are in, there is some good and there is some bad. So ultimately, it's our decision. If you're going to fixate on what is bad in our life, then it's almost impossible to ever be even accepting of God's existence. Or what to speak of learning to love God. So, I was in Scotland a couple of months ago, or 3 November. So, at that time I met one devotee. He attended my class, asked some very intelligent questions. So then I asked him, what does he do? So I noticed that his accent seems Scottish. It's like, for us English is English, but once you start going abroad, each place of English has its own accent. Like the English of England is very different from the English of Glasgow, the way people speak. The English of New York is very different from the English of Texas. So he didn't seem Scottish or British. So he told me that I am from Ukraine. And I asked him, what do you do? So he said, I am a doctor, and I drive Uber. I said, really? So then he explained that you look very, very educated, dignified kind of person. But what happened is, when the war broke out in Ukraine, at that time he had to leave. He left with his family, and then UK offered refuge. And he was a doctor. In fact, he told me that he was the head of cardiology in a big hospital in Ukraine. But then what happens in America, in the Western world, their medical standards are sometimes a little too excruciatingly high. That means that the degrees which he had got in Ukraine, that is not recognized in UK world. So he has to do some other further education, and it's very expensive, and only then he'll be able to practice medicine. So now, for a person who was not just a doctor but head of cardiology department to drive a Uber, it's a terrible situation. But he said that I'm grateful that nothing happened to my family. We all could come here. I've got a job. I can take care of my family. My children are going to school, and we are not very far from a devotee community. And he was a devotee there also. He been introduced to Bhakti there in Ukraine. So he continued on. So now what has happened is, the terrible happened. There's no denying that it's terrible. But he was telling me that I can look at some of my other friends, some of others, they've gone to some other countries where they are refugees, but they've not yet got jobs. So they have to depend on the government to give them some financial support. And in the West, normally they have this humanitarian that if somebody comes as a political refugee, then they offer support. But there's a lot of political turbulence going on, and that can just be taken away anytime. When you are depending on the government to provide money, the government can take away anytime. But then if you have your own job, it's much different. Say, at least I have a job. So we all have this capacity to look for the good around the bad. Now you could say, I was practicing bhakti, and why did such a thing have to happen in my life? Where is Krishna? Well, Krishna, we can see his hand in the good amid the bad. So now let me elaborate on this a little bit. There are different metaphors which we may use to explain the nature of the world. And I'll go into those metaphors maybe in a later class. But at this point, that if we consider that there is somebody is sick and they are in the hospital, they are in pain. Okay, the pain is there, but what is the good around it? You have a good doctor, you've got a competent support staff, you are being taken care of. That is the good around the bad. So look for the good around the bad. And we'll see this repeatedly when Lord Ram, for example, is exiled to the forest. What does he say? There are citizens who come and say, this is such a terrible thing. You were virtuous, you never did anything wrong. See, exile is a terrible, terrible punishment. Exile is just one state, one level below execution. Execution, you take away your life. Exile is you take away everything except your life. Why? He says, you did not never did anything wrong. It's so terrible. And Lord Ram says, what is terrible about it? He said that it is good for grahasthas, for householders to interact with the sages and learn wisdom from them. But most householders don't get time for it till they are elderly. For me, in youth itself, I had time to grow in wisdom. He says that every child is indebted to their parents and they want to repay the debt. But here I have an opportunity to honor my father's word and to do some sacrifice for the one who sacrificed so much for me. Younger brother is like a son, and every parent wants their children to exist. I can, in my presence, Bharat become the king. So that is our family success. I see all the goodness everywhere. See, that's a bit of a stretch, but that is not wrong. He's able to see good around the bad also. So, when I got polio, I was about 1. My mother took me to a polio clinic. To a clinic to get the polio vaccine, and that's one of the most reliable vaccines in the world. Polio is almost eliminated from the world. But what happened was there was this cold storage problem. They call it medicine, that the vaccines have to be kept cold. But there was a power supply issue over there because it's not such a well-developed place, and because of that, the vaccines got heated up. The fridge in which they had been kept did not have power supply. And when the vaccine was given to me, because the germs in it had multiplied, instead of preventing polio, it ended up causing polio. So now I don't remember any of it. I was about 1 and I was learning to walk, I'm told, and it felt out I could never walk normally thereafter. But what I remember is when I was about 2.5 or 3, one of our distant relatives had come to our home and she was consoling my mother, saying, "It's so sad your son got polio." And I remember my mother's voice, very calm, clear, confident. She said, "Whatever he lacks physically, God will provide him intellectually." Now I don't know why she said that. Whether it was based on some observation of some intellectual ability I had, whether it was a hope, whether it was a prayer, whether it was a blessing. Whatever it is, but that stayed with me. And as I grew up, I couldn't do much physically. But I did find that I was intellectually quite good. I could analyze, I could remember, I could articulate. So I developed in that direction. Now, what happens is that for each one of us, there is bad in our life. Now, we can see God in the good around the bad. So, this bad thing is there, but these good things are still there in my life. And that is the choice we have to make. Consciously shift our attention to what is good around the bad. So, what things are right in my life? Now, at a bigger philosophical level, if you want to look at this, that there are hundreds and thousands of things that can go wrong. Our body is so fragile and vulnerable. If you consider our body, what is the nature of our body? Actually, this looks like a person, not a body. But okay, what I'm trying to say, let me put it this way, like one bug from inside, or one bang from outside. It is destroy our body. One tiny virus, one tiny bug, or one just a car hits us. So we are so fragile. So the fact that we are alive, in spite of how dangerous the world is, in spite of how fragile our body is, that we are alive itself is a miracle. That most of you are still quite young. So I recently started connecting with my friends, school and college friends, and we were in school, especially we were a batch of about 50 students in one class. And I'm around less than 49 now. So I found that 12 of us were students have died because of accident, because of disease, whatever. So now it says whatever we are, particular age, you all probably know people who died before they attained your age. So my point is that life itself is a gift, and if we are alive, that is itself one big thing that is right with us. And There are so many things which could have gone wrong. So during the course of our life, we often look for gifts in life. And that's where we see the hand of God. That means something good happens to us. Okay, I got this admission in this very good college, I got this job, or this good thing happened to me. Look for the gifts in life. And it's good to look at those, but what is fundamental is the gift of life. That we are alive itself, that every day we wake up, our heart is still beating, we are still breathing. That is a gift. And that we do very little to actually continue this. So just the fact that we are alive is, for a thoughtful person, evidence that there is something big that is right in my life. So look for the good around the bad. Now after that, what is the acronym we're discussing?
Yes.
And this is why it's so important for us, if we want to be really Krishna conscious, it is that we need to cultivate gratitude. That, as we say, count your blessings. Now, count your blessings, we say. Now, I'll come back to this point a little later. But count your blessings, that's important. But what is important is, after that, make your blessings count. That means what? That in times of distress, we remember the things that are good in our life. So if I have never developed the habit of counting my blessings, then when something goes wrong, it's very difficult to count the blessings at that time. Because the only thing we will count is the amount of curses that want to come out of our mouth towards whoever hurt us. So it's very difficult. But regularly, okay, this is right in my life, this is right in my life, that is right in my life. And now it's very important when we say count our blessings, that sometimes people try to feel grateful. But you are told you should feel grateful for this and that and that and that. And then what is this? See, anything can be taken to an extreme. So, many psychologists have told that gratitude is a very positive emotion. But then they found that many people who write a gratitude journal tend to become more depressed than others who don't write a gratitude journal. Not all, many actually find it very helpful. But what happens is, sometimes the society and the world tells us you should feel grateful for this. And then we don't feel grateful for it. And then we feel dreadful that we don't feel grateful. And we end up getting depressed by that. So we cannot really legislate our emotions. So when you're talking about count your blessings, it's not just what we should feel grateful for. It is what I actually feel grateful for. So at a philosophical level, we understand that among so many kalpas, we are born in that particular kalpa where Krishna came and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. This is so fortunate. Feel grateful for that. Okay, yes. But right now I'm not getting a job. That's a big worry for me. Which kalpa I was born in doesn't matter to me. Isn't it? So if you don't feel grateful for something, don't beat yourself up for that. Okay, what is it that I feel grateful for right now? What do I actually feel is right in my life? And that's where interacting with a wide variety of people, how much opportunity we have, it depends, but interacting with a wide variety of people helps a lot. In India, when students come to school, they may ask you, so where do you live? In America, especially in certain communities, the kids ask you not where do you live, with whom do you live, your mother or your father? Because mother and father practically never live together. So it's very difficult for a child to grow up in such an environment. So just having a family, two-parent family together, that is a blessing, and that is not what many people have. So there are many things you may take for granted, and you cannot force yourself to be grateful for this. But through our own experiences, when we see what somebody has gone through or what people are facing, it's easier to get a perspective. Look for the good around the bad. Now after this, the second part is look for the good to counter the bad. Now we may say, okay, all that is good. Okay, yeah, I lost my job. Yeah, I have a family, I have this, I have that, but still I lost my job. Isn't it? See, in America, I haven't met a single person who says I'm jobless. The phrase they use in America is I'm between jobs. So, between jobs is okay, I had that job, I don't have it, now I'll get another job. So in India, there's a lot of competition. There's not so much competition. So getting jobs is not that difficult. I'm between jobs. They're quite nonchalant about it. Sometimes too nonchalant. In India, if you hear in a family you lost your job, it's like somebody died in the family. So the point is that, okay, functionally there's a problem, I lost my job. So I may say, oh, so many other things are right in my life, but what do I do about this? So if we consider, this is like a big circle. There may be 10 things which are the good around the bad. Now within that, maybe I can find 3 things that can help me to counter the bad. Okay, I have good health, I have a bank balance, I have my own home. So these are all good things. I don't have a big mortgage. So these are good things around the bad. But what I could say is that, okay, I have a degree, I have some work experience, I have friends who can help me find a job. Look for the good around, not just around the bad, but look for the good that can help us to counter the bad. When Parikshit Maharaj is cursed to die in 7 days, that's blatantly unfair. A small mistake and a completely disproportionate punishment. Now Shringi could have cursed Parikshit Maharaj to die immediately also. You disrespected your father, die right now. Why did he give him 7 days? Because for Shringi, what he thought was that Parikshit has become drunk by arrogance because of his power. He thinks that he can disrespect a sage like my father. So what he wanted to do was subject Parikshit Maharaj to the sense of powerlessness. You thought you are a powerful king who can do whatever you want. You are so powerless, your death is coming to you and you can do nothing about it. So he wanted to subject Parikshit to greater pain by giving him 7 days. Now when Parikshit renounced the world and went to the forest, and the sages came over there. So at that time, Parikshit Maharaj doesn't waste time in asking, why did this happen to me? He doesn't just want, maybe I did something in the past life, what did I do in which life? He didn't go. He says that he expresses gratitude to the sages that in this great moment of test for me, all of you have come here to offer your guidance and your blessings. And for that I am grateful. So look for the good that helps us to counter the bad. So you can ask, why did this bad happen? Okay, it has happened now. It is here. That's why I talk about chance and choice. The chance we can say it is karma. It's your own past karma. But the focus of the karma philosophy is not why something happened. It is that whatever the reason something happened, what you do about it will make a difference. That's why it's meant to empower our choice. Now, how much what we do will make a difference, that may be different in different situations. Say, somebody, they save money and they build a financial, what they call a good financial nest for themselves. They have some security for the future. Now they have squandered all the money and they lost all the money, or they suddenly found that they had a debt which they didn't know about. Maybe they got it from their parents or something, and they're in big financial trouble. That's unfair. But okay, how you spend money right now still matters. A certain debt may have come upon you because of no reason, but still how you manage your money right now matters. So karma is more about empowering our choice than explaining what seems to be chance for us. So empowering our choice means that look for the good around the bad so that we have a positive spirit. Now, having a positive spirit is good enough, but still we have a practical problem. Isn't it? How do I do with the practical problem? Then look for what resources we have among those which can be used to deal with that situation. Look for the good that can help us to counter the bad. When Prabhupada went to America, he said, the Boro Krupa Koile Krishna, Athamera Prati. Boro Krupa Koile Krishna. Krishna, you have been very merciful to me. So what is the mercy? He is old, he's elderly at least, not old, he's elderly. He has no money, he has no institutional support, he has no followers. And his body is subject to heart attack. What is good? So he's saying that at least, although I have no facility, at least I have the opportunity to carry out my spiritual master instruction. So he's grateful for that. Look for the good around the bad. But from that, it's not just okay, I have the opportunity. What do I do with the opportunity? So Prabhupada, his focus when he went to America, see, generally, if you are to present yourself, you have to have some credentials. Then spirituality, there is no, okay, you have got a PhD in spirituality. The credentials don't come like that. The credentials have to be, in one sense, they have to be earned by one's behavior, by one's words, one's actions. But there has to be a starting point. So that starting point for Prabhupada was his Bhagavatam. He had written 3 volumes of the Bhagavatam. And now with ChatGPT, everybody can become an author now. It's become very easy. Now, many publishing houses, when authors submit some book drafts for them, now publishing houses are considering whether we should interview the authors. And do you actually know the subject? It happened in one case that one author wrote a book about physics. And when he was asked what is Newton's law, third law of motion, he wouldn't tell that. And he wrote a book on popular physics. Now, how did he write the book? Well, AI wrote the whole book for him. So, so the thing I'm saying is that actually during those times, 1970s, with practically no technology available, writing a book was a huge task. So Prabhupada, he had those Bhagavatam volumes with him, and that helped him, at least to some extent, to establish some credibility. He's an author, and he's written these books. It's not just the one Prabhupada disciple said, when I met Swami, I was, who is this? But when I saw that he had written books, he's not just somebody who woke up one day and said, I thought that I'm God. Not like that. So what do I have to counter? So this is where, okay, one is the attitude. You have to have a positive attitude. But after having a positive attitude, we have to do something practical. So look for the good around the bad. Look for the good to counter the bad. So one is, it will make us positive. Like look for the good around the bad. Look for the good that can help us to counter the bad. That will help us to become practical. And there will always be something that we may not be able to do a huge difference, but always we can make some difference. What can I do to counter the bad? Okay. So if I'm sick and okay, I don't know why I'm sick. At least I know, okay, I should not eat unhealthy food, I don't want to increase my sickness. I have that much knowledge. That I can, okay, if I eat this way, if I take this medicine, this will be better. Look for the good to counter the bad. And third is, look for the good that will emerge from the bad. This is what will make us patient. That sometimes when bad things happen, where do we see the hand of Krishna over there? Oh, Krishna has still kept all this right in my life and Krishna has given me this to face this. That Krishna has given me these weapons, these resources to counter. But then, sometimes Krishna's plan is revealed with time. So something good will emerge from the bad. So now that does not make the bad good. Bad is still the bad. And being God conscious doesn't mean we have to try to think of the bad as good. It's still bad. But now, for example, for Prabhupada, nobody helped him. And his outreach in India. Even when he went to America, nobody from India was ready to help him. Even his god brothers, all that he asked them once was that, he had already got a sponsor from India who was ready to support him in building a temple in America. But because India was under socialist rule at that time, it had a very rigid control on finances. So foreign exchange, they didn't want money from India to go outside. So sending money was very difficult. And one of Prabhupada's war brothers was on talking terms. He knew the president of America, India at that time. So Prabhupada just would request him that this is for a temple, please go and talk with him. This god brother didn't even bother to reply to his letters. So Prabhupada felt naturally discouraged. But then, what happened through it all? He was discouraged, but he was never so discouraged that he gave up practicing or gave up time to share. Eventually, what happened? It was with no assistance from India, that with people from the West who he had cultivated, it was that Prabhupada built Krishna consciousness. So for so many years, things didn't work out in India, and when they worked out in America, the very unlikeliness of his success made it even more glorious. So if Prabhupada had a big following in India and they had gone and helped him, that would have been easier for Prabhupada, but it would. The way Krishna worked it out, it was so much more glorious. It glorified Prabhupada so much more. So look for the good that will emerge from the bad. Now how long will it take for the good to emerge from the bad? Again, that we don't know. For the Pandavas, their exile, for Lord Ram, the exile was 14 years. For the Pandavas, it was 12 plus 1. We don't know. 12 plus 1, 12, multiply 12 plus 1 many times also. Because if they discovered the cognitive exile, they would have to go back again. And Duryodhana was confident that the Pandavas would never be able to hide. Because Yudhishthira was the world emperor. And Bhima was such a heavily built person. And like somebody who is 7 foot and maybe 150 kg weight. Be invisible. Be discreet, keep a low profile. You just can't keep a low profile, isn't it? She was confident that the Pandavas will never be able to hide. See, Kaikeyi had no ill feelings towards Ram. She just wanted Ram to be out of the picture so that Bharat would become the king. And in 14 years, he said Bharat would show his ability, he would win the people over, and then when Ram comes back, there's no threat. But what Duryodhana wanted to do was give the Pandavas hope and smash them. 13 years after that, you'll get the kingdom, but you don't get the kingdom. 13 more years. 12 plus 1. And like that, he wanted to keep them suffering for life. So it was particularly sadistic, that 1 year cognitive condition. Sadistic means one who gives joy in causing suffering to others. But the point was that when the Pandavas went to the forest, they had 12 plus 1. It was less definite, but there was some time span was there. But for all of us, when we go through sufferings, we may not know what is the time span exactly. How long this will go on. But that does not mean that it is going to go on forever. Through every one of our pains, it is that Krishna brings us to a deeper understanding of life. It's often, see what happens for us, if I am here, I have a worldview around me that protects me. Whatever be the particular worldview. And sometimes that worldview gets cracked. And sometimes it is through the cracks in the things that protect us. It is through our wounds that God's light comes into our life. If the wounds were not there, then you just say, I know everything, my life is fine. Why do I need anything else? So, that, if we look at our life, right now something might seem very terrible. But rather than thinking, I am trying to practice bhakti, this is a terrible thing happened, where is God? Instead of thinking in those terms, okay, I may not be able to see God's hand right now, but in why this particular bad thing happened. So look for the good around the bad, look for the good that helps us counter the bad, but still the bad remains. So why did that bad happen? That we will learn over time. It may take time to learn that. It's like, if I am here, at this point, it may feel this bad happened to me. Why did this happen to me? It just makes no sense. But maybe if we are, as I said, we wait for things to emerge. Then in retrospect, in hindsight, we may realize that it happened not to me, it happened for me. Now what do I mean by happened for me? I'll conclude with the last example of this. That, see, in the Ramayana, Vali and Sugriva were not his brothers, they were the best of friends and allies. And both of them had fought many wars together. And Sugriva accepted Vali's leadership. But then there was a tragic misunderstanding. Sugriva thought that Vali had been killed, and thinking that his killer was very dangerous, he trapped him in that cave. But then Vali had survived. Vali came out and he saw Sugriva sitting on the throne. And he thought, Sugriva tried to trap me to take away my kingdom. He felt so angry, he tried to beat up Sugriva. And Sugriva had to run away from there to save his life. And for Vali, he thought that if he had not been guilty, why would he run away? It confirmed his guilt. And then others tried to explain to him, actually he thought that he had died. See, he just got angry with anyone who told this. Sugriva told the story and you all believed it. You thought, I can die by some ordinary demon. You didn't see his plan. So anybody who tried to give Sugriva's side of the story, Vali just distanced themselves from him. Then no, people stopped speaking. Then Vali decided, I have to. Sugriva tried to kill me, I have to kill him first. Before he tries again. And his whole thing was a horrendous misunderstanding. But Sugriva's life became like a living nightmare. Constantly he had to worry, where is somebody going to come to assassinate me? He had to run all over the earth to try to find some hiding place. Now why was this happening to him? He didn't know. But later when Sita was abducted and Lord Ram and Sugriva formed an alliance, and then Sugriva had to assist Lord Ram. So when he had brought Vanaras from all over the world to help him, he told them, if you go across this, you have to go in the south, you go in the east, you go in the west. And he gave them guide. If you go in this, you come to this river, don't try to cross this river over here. It's very stormy over here. Go down, the current is small over here, go from here. There is this huge mountain. Now there is this cave which is safe. This cave is not safe. This mountain can be crossed over here, not over there. So Lord Ram was hearing all that, and after that he came and said, "Was geography your favorite subject in school?" He didn't say that exactly, of course. But he said, "You have a lot of knowledge of the world." And that's when Sugriva realized that all the running away that he had to do, all the hiding he had to do, it was not just pointless. It was all preparing him so that he could do this service for Lord. So what happened to him happened for him. So for us also, even the bad things that have happened, something good will come out of it. Now sometimes we may realize it after 1 year, sometimes after 5 years, sometimes after 10 years. Sometimes maybe we may not realize in this lifetime. It's only at the end of our lifetime or we may realize it. But the point is, we see Krishna's hand by waiting for the good to emerge. And that way, through whatever we are facing in life, we can remain Krishna conscious. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. That seeing Krishna's hand in hard times, in pain, we can say. How to see Krishna's hand in pain. So first point was that I took a lot of time in that. That was about we want to be Krishna conscious. That's more important than the karma conscious. The karma is not a magic wand we can use to explain away all suffering. I talked about karma has two different aspects. That our karma can be used to different. That there is the element of choice in what happens, and there is the element of chance. So while often the focus is on karma is to explain that it's not chance, it's your own thing. And that's true, but what is more important is that karma is meant to empower choice. And our actions matter even when they don't seem to matter. I talked about the difference between logical and fair, or illogical and unfair. They're not the same thing. So karma may be logical, but still it does not seem fair many times. If we don't see God as fair, then how can we even love God? So that's why I discussed about the three possible explanations for the evil in the world. One is it's all chance, that how much money you put in your bank account and how much your bank account shows, there's no correlation. It doesn't work sense. Or we can say it's arbitrary God. And that the cashier will decide how much value your bank account shows. That also does not make sense. The third is karma with multi-life progression. That means I understand that just as that when I get A leads to R, action leads to result is a basic thing. But it can be A1 plus A2 leads to R. And similarly, A can lead to R1 plus R2 also. So sometimes I may do some action and I may not get the result. But that does not mean my action does not matter. My action still matters. So we discussed about, with this understanding, how do we focus on being Krishna conscious amid distress? What is the acronym? ACE. A was look for the good around the bad. So this will help us to have a positive attitude at least. So that is, there is bad in my life, there is good in my life. So I will choose to focus not on the bad, but on the good. So that is what will help us to see that yes, Krishna is still there with me. We focus on the good in our life. We talk about the gifts in life versus the gift of life. Sometimes gifts in life may come or may not come. They may come intermittently. But the fact we are alive, that itself is a huge blessing, gift of life. Then C was to counter. Look for the good that helps us to counter the bad. That will help us to be practical. So among the things that are right in my life, these may be what is good around. So out of that, what is the good that helps me to counter the bad? So we have some practical resources which we use for dealing with the problems. And we see those, I don't know why this problem has come, but these resources that I have to deal with the problem, that is Krishna's gift to me. The last was emerge. That we can look at our own life in the past and something which seemed terrible for us, how something good has come out of it. So what happened to me, I may realize in future that it happened for me. Yeah. So we discussed the example of Sukhi over here. This way, through whatever situation we go through in life, we can learn to be Krishna conscious. All this is very easy to say, and when difficult times come, it's still not easy. But at least we have some framework, and we can act on that framework to whatever capacity we can. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare. Any quick question or comment? We'll have more questions in the future class if we have time. Tell me.
खासकर जब साइकेट्री वार्ड में आते हैं उस पेशेंट को कैसे देखना चाहिए मेंटल कभी सही नहीं होता है माइंड
खासकर
मतलब जो साइकेट्री पेशेंट होते हैं वो 10 साल 15 साल 20 साल चलते हैं तो उस टाइम में उसको व्यक्ति कैसे देखना चाहिए हम लोग को कैसे
See, there are certain resources. If somebody is a psychiatric patient, then what do we do? How do we see them? Basically, we all have, each of us is a soul, and we all have a kshetra around us. Kshetra is our area of influence. So, my kshetra right now is this classroom. I can set the terms. It's not that if some of you want to speak, I can say, we'll have question answer in the class. I have some control over here right now. Our kshetra can increase, it can decrease. Sometimes I may have audience of 5 people, sometimes I may have audience of 500 people. Now sometimes if I am a student in a class, I'm hearing a class, then my kshetra is that, okay, I hear attentively, at the end I can make a point, or I can ask a question. So our kshetra changes. So sometimes the kshetra that we have can become very less. Like somebody might be athlete, but they get an injury and they're better. That person could run marathons of many miles, and now they can't even get out of bed. Kshetra has decreased. So like that, the kshetra can decrease not only at the physical level, it can also decrease at the mental or intellectual level. So like as we grow old, sometimes we start forgetting things. So sometimes some people get into coma. Coma means what? They're alive, but they're almost as if not alive. That's a phase. So from this life's perspective, it can seem very big and very unfair or unbearable also. But we are eternal souls. And from that bigger perspective, this decrease in Kshetra is not that consequential. So it's just some karma works in different ways. Karma can decrease the Kshetra in different ways to different degrees. Some ways the karma can decrease the Kshetra is very, it can be very difficult. So what do? We just have to learn to live with it. We just understand this is some karma coming up. Now there's a disease, medical condition called incontinence. Incontinence means, the person just cannot control their bladder. It's very embarrassing. You have to basically have carry a bag around with you or whatever. But life sometimes, we can look at what is not in my control and become frustrated. It's embarrassing. But that's what life is. So whatever is in my kshetra to control, I use that and move forward. And sometimes, if a person in that situation, then really their capacity for choice in psychiatry is gone away for some time. So then it is society responsible to keep them under constraint so that they don't harm themselves or harm others too much. And maybe that will change in this lifetime. We have to do some treatment. Or maybe it will not be in this lifetime. It will be in a future lifetime. Thank you. One quick question. Okay. Ask question.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Prabhuji, my question is if someone is facing deep-rooted conditioning, so one time bad happens, okay, we move ahead and we generally I keep alive, keep going until you get where you want to be, keep moving. So, but second times happens, still move. But when it comes to 4 times, 5 times,
it will take some time. This will take some time to answer the question. Not really improve. What are the next topics that I'm going to speak on this? To this audience, basically.
Next topic, today Japa workshop was there. Next
Yeah.
topic was how to cultivate mode of goodness.
Okay, so we'll talk about that tomorrow. I'll talk about this. It's going to elaborate subject that it's persistent conditioning, what to do about them, how to avoid being discouraged. We'll talk about it elaborately. Okay. Last question.
Hare Krishna, Guru. Thank you so much for sharing wisdom. I'm feeling so much blessed to hear life from you after a long time. Prabhuji, I was having a question like, when things go bad in the life, many times, even I've seen the devotees also, they go for astrology. So, can you share your view, like how to see that?
Can devotees go for astrology? See, I would say that it's a matter of two things, practical and philosophical. At a practical level, it is one tool to try to make sense of life and to deal with life. And like if we have a disease, we go to a doctor. If we have financial problems, we may consult a financial expert to see, okay, where should I invest? How should I manage my finances? Like that, we could consider this is also one field. Now, of course, you have to consider that the astrologer is reliable and whatever that's it. But let's assume it is. I'll not go into the merits of astrology right now. So, a practical perspective, somebody wants to use that resource, it's just another resource in the world. From a philosophical, from a practical perspective, we don't say that if you have a fracture and you go to a doctor, that shows you don't have faith in Krishna. No, Krishna can act through doctor also, isn't it? So, why can't Krishna act through astrologer also? At the philosophical level, the problem is that when we consider astrology, at that time, we may start worshipping some other devatas. They may recommend, you do this puja and you do that. Now, even doing such a puja is not a problem. So Indra, Arjuna wanted to fight the Kurukshetra war, he did tapasya to get celestial weapons from particular devatas. But when a particular devata gave him some weapon, he did not start thinking, you have given such a powerful weapon. You are better than Krishna. Let me start worshipping you only. No, he was clear that within Krishna's jurisdiction, this Devata has this power and can give it to me. So for us, the big problem comes in astrology is that when something starts working for us, we start believing that more. Then Krishna consciousness comes. And I've seen sometimes devotees, they go to the extent that if their preaching is not successful, they say that, it's because our temple is not according to Vastu. Okay. But then what happens is you spend $1,000 or $1 million to demolish the temple and reconstruct it again according to Vastu principles. That's going too far, isn't it? So, when Prabhupada started his storefront, he did not bother about Vastu. Isn't it? So, my point is that, again, if somebody wants to construct a temple according to Vastu, there's nothing wrong in it. But my point is, thinking that the preaching is not happening because of the temple is not according to Vastu. That is a problem. So, sometimes the key problem with astrology is that if it starts working for us, then it's not working for us, it starts working on us. No, this can happen with anything also. Now, some devotees read some self-help books. Some devotees may read some book about good public speaking. Some devotees may read some books about maybe a positive mental attitude or whatever. You read that and you start thinking that those authors are better gurus than our gurus. And then it becomes a problem. So, as long as we are very clear about the sadhya and the sadhana. My sadhya is Krishna and sadhana. There can be different sadhans I can use. So, if I'm clear that astrology is simply one means that I may use at a particular time. So, what happens? The more explicitly material the field, the less that will challenge or threaten our devotion. I mean, if I have to build a temple or I have to build a house, which I have a temple inside, and I consult an architect or read up on architecture, now that is not going to make me question my faith in Krishna. So the more gross the field is, the less likely it is to overlap with or threaten our faith. But the more subtle the field becomes, the more likely it is that it may threaten or jeopardize our faith. So that is the main caution. I don't think astrology itself is a problem. Astrology is a valid branch of knowledge. Now can we say that Krishna will take care of everything? We don't need to consult astrologers? That's one way of looking at it. But if a devotee has a persistent problem, a devotee feels the need to consult astrology, it's not that we should guilt that devotee into saying that you lack faith in Krishna. That's why you go into astrology. No, if that's what is, the problem is persistent, if that's what helps, nothing wrong in going there. But don't think that that is a bigger solution than Krishna consciousness. Thank you very much. Shri Prabhupada ki. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki. Gaur Vande.